can give me answers to 1 through 7? Who's awake, first of all? Michael, what do you got for the first set?
E, D, F, G, E, G, A.
All right, you said F, G, what was number 5? E, 6, G, 2 and 7. I'm going to come back to that one. How about 7?
A,
A. And what'd you have for number 2?
D,
D. And for number 1?
E.
All right. For number 1, 15 and 6. If I'm looking at something with multiple systems of angles, I'll circle 15 and 6 for the first problem. Then I might even circle the system itself, just so I'm not, the systems themselves, so that I'm not looking at this area over here. Where are those angles? If this is the transversal, would you classify those angles as interior or exterior? Exterior. And they're on opposite sides. What should I put in for number 1? See? Alternate exterior. And for number 6, number 6, 2 and 7. 2 and 7. Move this down a little bit. Now I'm focused on these two systems. These are the lines being cut by this transversal. If this is the transversal, then that means that this is the interior of that setup, which means that I'm looking at interior angles that are on opposite sides of the transversal. Which choice is that? Is that B? If you're having trouble visualizing, circle the systems, figure out where the transversal is, figure out where the interior is for that case. It changes depending on your frame of reference.
But how are they parallel?
They're not.
You don't have to.
We don't have to have parallel lines in order to use these terms. You notice we're not saying that anything's equal and anything's supplementary. We're just saying that that's the name of it. And we can do that as long as it's interior between the two lines that are being cut by the transversal. Then we know that this is the interior for 2 and 7. This is the transversal right here. They're on opposite sides of that transversal, which we call alternates. Good questions. Don't have to have parallel lines in order to use the terms. If we want to start saying that things are equal or supplementary, then things have to be parallel. Like page 2. We've got arrows on here. So now we can start talking about the relationships. Justification. You might have some problems that require you to justify. Go with the original picture. If I'm looking at these two angles, what kind of angle pair am I looking at? Right? If I use an abbreviation, you're allowed to use an abbreviation. Don't make it any shorter than that. And what's our relationship for alternate interior angles? At this stage, we only have 2 choices. What are they? Equal or supplementary? Equal. So, value of x. Make sure you write down the variable. Make sure you write down the number. Did I write down any degree measure there? Or any degree symbol? No. That's what I'm looking for. I'm going to take off points if I see something different. This is just a value. It shouldn't have any units. It shouldn't have a little degree symbol on it. It's just a number value. It should have a variable there. Don't just throw down the number 70. Attach it to something. Attach it to what you're looking for. So when I write x equals 60 for my x value for the second one, what should I have as my justification? Boomer?
Same side.
He wrote same side interior. Is he correct? Yep. What else could he have written? Consecutive interior. So for this objective, we're already being shown parallel lines. Same for number 10. I'm assuming that you can do the math to figure out that that's 30.25 for x. Said solve for x, that's just a value. Never raise your hand during a test and ask, should I be getting decimals? You get whatever you get. Decimals are your friend, and real life doesn't work out to whole numbers. Why did I make them equal? You didn't ask for a justification, but what should you be thinking in your head? What kind of angle pair is this? Alternate exterior. It wasn't required, but you're thinking it anyways if you know what you're doing with the question. Page 3. This time we're proving that the lines are parallel. It's the same process most of the time. In order for these two lines to be parallel, these consecutive interior angles have to add up to 180. So I'm still doing the same type of equation work. What did you get when you solved through that equation? What was x? 7? What value of x? That's what I need. Don't put a degree measure on that 7. Make sure that you actually tell me what variable you're talking about. And even though justification wasn't required, this is consecutive interior angles. Just by looking at either linear pairs or vertical angles, I can see that this system and this system are the same, therefore A and D is a combination I'm looking for. We don't know a whole lot right now. In fact, this box kind of summarizes most of what we know. Given, make sure that things show up over here. If I don't see arcs over here, I'm going to take some points off. These are fairly simple, and they're going to be fairly close to what we looked at in our workbook and any of the worksheets that we worked on. So I'm going to be picky about little details. 1 and 2 given, 1 and 3. Why are these two the same? Kyle? Corresponding angles. Let's see, is that one of our choices up here? Right here. Corresponding angles. You can use some of these more than once. I don't know if that occurs here. You can't use something like this unless somewhere before that line you've said that something is parallel. 2 and 3. 2 and 3. Some people are going to want to write down alternate exterior angles. Well, we can't say that they're equal until we know that these two are parallel, and that's actually what we're trying to prove. So is there another way that we can show that these two are congruent? Okay. Transitive property. If you write the word transitive, you should have a link. What's the link in this case? What's linking 3 and 2 together? Go back, see if you've got that. If you can't find that link, then you probably shouldn't be writing transitive property. If you're trying to show that something's parallel, what should be the last word you write down? Converse. You have a couple different converse statements that you can write, or reasons that you can write. But what's the only one that mentions converse up here? Alternate exterior angles. And that's exactly what we're looking at. Alternate exterior angles, converse. We're reversing what we normally see. Normally we see if parallel, then things are equal. Now we're saying if things are equal, we've got parallel. We're switching it. We're doing the converse. Number 14 is a combination of a formal proof and an algebraic proof. Make sure everything ends up over here. That includes algebraic expressions. Everything is together here on one line, so we can just write one given. What allows me to say that this is equal to this? What would you put for your reason for number 2? Alternate exterior. We can only write something like that if we have something like that previous. What do you do if you see definition of congruence? Normally, definitions and postulates are pretty straightforward, pretty obvious. What do you think the next line should read, Aaron? All right, we're going to make sure we have the little m in there, though. Measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 2. And we could have the reverse of that. We could have something that has an equal sign and end up with a congruent sign. How did I know that that was occurring? Well, if you don't know it by looking at the reason, look at what happens when you get down to number 4. All of a sudden you've got an equal sign there where before you had a congruent sign. How do we get from this and this to 12x minus 26 equals 10x plus 18? What do we call it when we replace things? Substitution. Is that one of my choices up top? Is there a substitution property? Good. Then, at that point, you're just writing down what's occurring from line to line. In order to get from line 4 to line 5, I've got to subtract 10x, subtract 10x. And that's what's written over here. Then to get to the next line, I've got to add 26, add 26. That's what I wrote. How do I get from 6 to 7? What operation is occurring? Division. Divided by 2, divided by 2. Division, property of equality. We don't know a whole lot at this point. Don't overthink it. You're looking at all the objectives that are going to be on this test. You're going to end up with 5 objectives, 4 new ones from chapter 3, and then 1 review one. Yes. A word bank? Like on the previous page? Not sure. Possibly. State if the lines with the following points or equations are parallel, perpendicular, or neither is always an option. If I'm doing this, I'm getting 0 minus 5, 2 minus 1, negative 5 over 1. Then I'm getting negative 2 minus a negative 3, 8 minus 3. That looks like 1/5 to me. These are my two slopes. What do we notice about the slopes? Opposite reciprocals, which means that they are perpendicular. I'm going to pass out some graph paper on the day of the test. If you want to check yourself and go back and actually plot these points and take a look at the lines and make sure that you're getting something that even looks perpendicular, go ahead, check yourself. Don't have to do any slope work here. What's the two slopes that I should be focused on? Are the slopes 5 and negative 1/5? No. Slope, negative 3 and 3. They're not negative reciprocals of each other. Are they equal? What goes here? Review. This isn't everything. Here's 4 problems. I know that there's going to be at least 5 in the review section. But you get a good cross-section of what you're going to see. You're probably going to see some things from the logic chapter. You're going to have something with either distance or midpoint. And then you're going to have something where you're making some sort of equation. We don't know a whole lot at this point. Either things are equal or they add up to something. What does converse mean? What's the action I'm going to take? What should I be doing to this statement? Switch. Notice that I'm only going to be switching the main idea. The noun, the subject, whatever you want to call it, I don't have to move. So I'm going to keep an angle at the beginning. I'm really only moving the measures part. I'm going to keep the word it in the conclusion part. It is a right angle. Some people are looking at the whole phrase as what's being switched. This isn't crucial. Sometimes it is switched, sometimes it isn't. It's the main idea, the action, the verb, the predicate. I'm not sure if that's right in English class. That's what moved. Measures 90, right angle. What should I do with inverse? Does anything actually move? No. The mistakes we're seeing, people are not negating both parts. Negate both parts. If a number is not divisible by 2, then it is not divisible by 6. And if I'm asking for, or the SOL test is asking for, or a test is asking for inverse, converse, contrapositive, most of the time we're not interested in whether our outcome is true or not. We're just checking to see whether or not you know the vocabulary. Anybody get an answer for 19? Anybody do the length of the segment already? 10.8. I don't have a variable, So I don't need a variable, but it would be a good idea, since we're rounding, to put in our approximation symbol. You should have gotten at 117 underneath the radical sign. If you're not getting that, check with somebody, figure out what went wrong. When everybody's working on their workbook work today, or their textbook assignment, which I'll put on the board in a second, come up to my desk if you're not getting these answers. Whenever you have a problem that's finding either an angle or a segment and you've got a diagram, you have two choices. Things add up to something or they're equal to each other. Do I have any indication here that these two algebraic expressions are equal? No, there's nothing there. But I do have a total distance. That turned out to be x equals 5. Well, what's being asked for? We've got people stopping at that point and not really looking at the work. This time we need to do a little bit of substitution since we're finding x, y, and that would be 13. Since we have a name, let's actually write down what it is that we're finding. If you just write down 13, I'm going to take off a point. Write down what it is that it's equal to. If you don't have a drawing, draw a picture. I've got so many people who come up to me with test corrections, and the first thing I ask is, did you make a picture? They haven't even tried to make a diagram. Make a picture if something like this is not there. Any questions off the review? This is the bare minimum. Open up your textbook. Page 212. This is the first assignment for the second quarter. Page 212, 213, 1 through 39. This is to be done on a separate sheet of paper. And that's not due until next week. I don't even have a date for it yet. You have a priority list right now. If you have not done your test corrections, make sure you do your test corrections. If you have not done your workbook work, what workbook work are you responsible for this chapter? What have I assigned so far? 3-1 through what? 3-4? And that's it. And then get started on, what were the pages? 212 and 213? Questions 1 through 39. Loose leaf paper. I've got section 3.5 with a question mark written down. Open up your textbook to 3.5.